Good morning, friends. I want to start with a question, one that might make you a little uncomfortable. How often do you edit yourself to fit in? How often do you shrink, silence, or shift just to meet expectations that aren't even your own? I ask because I know what that feels like. I know what it's like to smile when you don't mean it, to say I'm fine when you're anything but, to hide parts of yourself that you fear might be too much or not enough. And here's the truth. Every single time we betray who we are to meet an expectation that wasn't ours to begin with, we chip away at our own sense of worthiness. Being true to yourself, it sounds so simple, doesn't it? But it's hard work. It requires courage, boundaries, and a willingness to disappoint people who prefer the version of you that fits neatly into their story. The research is clear that people who live with the most joy, the deepest sense of connection, and the most resilience are the ones who are rooted in their own truth. They don't contort themselves to be more palatable. They don't outsource their self-worth. They stand firm in who they are, even when it's uncomfortable. So how do we do this? How do we live as our truest, bravest selves? Belonging is one of the deepest human desires. From the time we are little, we look for signals that tell us we are accepted, valued, and part of something bigger than ourselves. But somewhere along the way, we start confusing belonging with fitting in. We start believing that if we shape ourselves into what others expect, if we say the right things, dress the right way, follow the unspoken rules, we will finally feel like we belong. The truth, though, is that fitting in is the opposite of belonging. Fitting in is changing who you are to be accepted by others. Belonging is showing up exactly as you are and knowing that you are enough. And here's the hard part. You will never truly belong anywhere if you don't first belong to yourself. If you don't accept yourself fully, flaws, strengths, contradictions, and all, you will always be looking for external validation to fill a void that only self-acceptance can fill. And then finally, only once you've accepted and accepted yourself can you fully. Self-belonging means standing firm in who you are, even when it's uncomfortable. It means no longer outsourcing your sense of worth to other people's opinions. It's the ability to sit with yourself, to hold space for your own emotions, and to know that you are valuable even when you don't feel like it. But let's be honest, this is not easy. It's hard to unlearn years of conditioning that told us we had to earn love by being what others wanted us to be. It's hard to stop performing for approval, especially when our survival once depended on it. But the moment you decide to belong to yourself first, something shifts. You stop chasing relationships that require you to shrink. You stop over-explaining yourself to people who were never going to understand you anyway. You stop hustling for worthiness because you realize you already have it. This doesn't mean you won't face rejection. In fact, when you stop people-pleasing, some people will walk away. Not everyone will understand the boundaries you set. Not everyone will celebrate the real, unfiltered version of you. And that's okay. When you belong to yourself first, rejection doesn't feel like proof that you're unworthy. It just feels like redirection, an invitation to align with people and spaces where you can be fully seen. True belonging isn't about being liked by everyone. It's about being loved by the right ones. And more than anything, it's about loving yourself enough to know that even if no one else understands you, you still belong. So what does this look like in everyday life? It means checking in with yourself before saying yes to things that don't align with you. It means giving yourself permission to take up space, to have opinions, to change, to grow. It means being honest about who you are, even when that honesty is inconvenient. And above all, it means understanding that belonging is not something you have to earn. It is something you claim. No one else can do that for you. Perfectionism is a shield we carry, believing it will protect us from shame, judgment, and rejection. We think that if we can just be perfect, if we say the right things, meet every expectation, then we'll finally be worthy of love and acceptance. But here's the hard truth. Perfection is not the key to belonging. It's the barrier to it. When we strive for perfection, we are not striving for authenticity. We are performing. We are polishing, editing, and curating ourselves to be more palatable to the world. And in doing so, we trade the messy, beautiful, real version of ourselves for something artificial, something that might be admired but never truly known. Authenticity requires imperfection. It demands vulnerability, honesty, and the courage to be seen as we really are. Think about the people you feel most connected to, the ones you love deeply and trust completely. Are they perfect? No. You don't love them because they never make mistakes. You love them because they are real. You love them because they have quirks, contradictions, and flaws just like you do. And yet, when it comes to ourselves, we cling to this impossible idea that if we could just be a little better, a little more polished, we would finally be enough. But the reality is, the more we chase perfection, the more disconnected we become, not just from others, but from ourselves. We stop listening to our own needs. We silence our real thoughts. We lose sight of who we are in the process of trying to be what we think others want us to be. Perfectionism is not about healthy striving or self-improvement. It's about fear. It's the fear of being judged, the fear of being rejected, the fear of not being enough. And that fear keeps us small. It keeps us stuck in cycles of people-pleasing, overworking, and second-guessing ourselves. It convinces us that we are only as good as our last achievement, our last compliment, or our last approval from someone else. But here's the thing, no matter how much you perfect, no matter how much you polish, there will always be someone who disapproves. There will always be someone who thinks you're too much or not enough. And if you live your life trying to be perfect for them, you will never be at peace with yourself. So what's the alternative? Embracing imperfection. Showing up as you are, not as a version of yourself you think will be accepted. It means allowing yourself to be seen, mistakes and all. It means choosing connection over control. It means recognizing that your worth is not tied to how flawless you appear, but to how fully you show up. Authenticity is not about being perfect, it's about being whole. And wholeness includes the messy parts, the unfinished parts, and the parts you're still learning to love. When you let go of perfection, you make space for something far more powerful, real, meaningful human connection. We live in a world that tells us to armor up. From an early age, we learn that vulnerability is something to avoid, that showing emotion is a sign of weakness, that needing help means we're failing, and that being open about our struggles will only invite judgment. So we build walls. We hide behind perfectionism, humor, cynicism, or busyness, all in an effort to protect ourselves from feeling exposed. But here's the truth. Vulnerability is not weakness. In fact, it is the most accurate measure of courage. The ability to show up, to be seen, and to be honest, even when there are no guarantees, is one of the bravest things we can do. Vulnerability is the birthplace of connection, creativity, and belonging. Without it, we may avoid pain, but we also miss out on joy, love, and a life that feels real. Think about a time when you felt truly connected to someone. Maybe it was during a deep conversation with a friend, when you finally let down your guard and admitted how overwhelmed you were. Maybe it was when someone shared their own struggles with you, and in that moment you felt less alone. Connection doesn't happen when we pretend to have it all together. It happens when we let people see the truth, our fears, our hopes, our messiness. And yet we resist vulnerability because it feels risky. We tell ourselves, what if they judge me? What if I get hurt? But the bigger question is, what if we don't? What if we spend our entire lives playing it safe, keeping our emotions locked away, never letting ourselves be fully seen? The cost of avoiding vulnerability is disconnection, not just from others, but from ourselves. We love stories of people who take risks, who speak their truth, who share their struggles openly. We are drawn to their honesty, their realness. But when it comes to our own lives, we hesitate. We think, I'll be vulnerable when I feel safer, when I know for sure it will be well received. But that's not how it works. Vulnerability is stepping forward before you know how it will turn out. It's saying, I love you first. It's admitting you need help. It's sharing your art, your ideas, your dreams without knowing whether they will be accepted. And yes, sometimes it will be uncomfortable. Sometimes it will hurt. But the alternative, a life lived behind walls, disconnected and inauthentic, is far worse. So what does it look like to embrace vulnerability in our everyday lives? It means having honest conversations instead of pretending everything is fine. It means setting boundaries and asking for what we need even when it feels awkward. It means owning our mistakes instead of covering them up. It means allowing ourselves to be seen, really seen, without filtering out the messy, imperfect parts. Vulnerability is not about oversharing or being reckless with our emotions. It's about being real. It's about recognizing that our worth is not dependent on how flawlessly we perform, but on how bravely we show up. And when we choose vulnerability, we don't just transform our relationships, we transform ourselves. For many of us, the idea of setting boundaries feels uncomfortable. We've been taught that saying no is selfish, that prioritizing our own needs makes us difficult, and that love or friendship means always being available, always saying yes. So we stretch ourselves too thin. We agree to things we don't have the energy for. We take responsibility for other people's emotions, and in the process, we slowly abandon ourselves. But here's what we need to understand. Boundaries are not walls to keep people out. They are guidelines that protect our well-being. They tell the world, this is what I need to be my healthiest, fullest, most authentic self. Setting boundaries is not about shutting people down. It's about showing up in relationships with honesty and self-respect. The truth is, without boundaries, we can't have true connection. When we don't communicate our limits, we build up resentment. We feel drained, overextended, and taken for granted. Not because others are intentionally mistreating us, but because we haven't made it clear what we need. And when we finally reach our breaking point, we either explode or shut down, damaging relationships in ways that could have been prevented. Boundaries allow us to engage with others from a place of honesty rather than obligation. They give us the freedom to be present in relationships without feeling like we're losing ourselves in the process. And most importantly, they teach us that our worth is not dependent on how much we give, how much we sacrifice, or how well we accommodate other people's expectations. One of the biggest fears we have about setting boundaries is the possibility of disappointing people. And the truth is, we will. When we start enforcing our limits, there will be people who push back, who don't understand, who prefer the version of us that never says no. But if our relationships are built on the expectation that we will always overextend ourselves, are those relationships truly healthy? The people who value and respect us will adjust. The ones who don't may drift away, and while that can be painful, it's also revealing. A relationship that requires you to abandon yourself is not a relationship worth keeping. Boundaries clarify who is truly in our corner. They allow us to separate the people who love us for who we are from those who love us for what we do for them. So how do we start setting boundaries in our daily lives? It begins with self-awareness. Recognizing where we feel depleted, where we say yes out of guilt instead of desire, where we sacrifice our own well-being to keep the peace. Then it requires clear and direct communication. Instead of saying, I guess I can help even though I'm exhausted, we say, I wish I could, but I don't have the capacity right now. Instead of allowing someone to repeatedly cross a line, we say, I need you to respect this boundary if we are going to have a healthy relationship. It will feel uncomfortable at first, especially if we've spent our whole lives being people pleasers, but discomfort is not a reason to back down. Boundaries are not a betrayal of others. They are an act of deep, necessary self-respect. And when we commit to them, we create a life where we are not just surviving, we are truly thriving. If we want to live as our truest, bravest selves, we have to get comfortable with being uncomfortable. The truth is, courage and comfort are rarely found in the same place. We don't grow in the spaces where we feel safe, where everything is predictable, where we are never challenged. Growth happens when we step outside of what is familiar, when we take risks, have hard conversations, and make choices that might not guarantee approval. It's easy to admire people who live boldly, who chase their dreams, who speak their truth, and who refuse to conform. But when it comes to our own lives, we hesitate. We think, I'll be brave when I feel ready, when I know for sure that things will work out. But courage doesn't wait for readiness. It requires action in the face of uncertainty. It requires stepping forward even when we are shaking. Many of us avoid discomfort because we associate it with danger. Our brains are wired for survival, and anything unfamiliar can feel like a threat. That's why setting boundaries feels hard. That's why speaking up when something isn't right makes our hearts pound. That's why making a big life change, even one we know is good for us, can feel terrifying. But discomfort is not always a sign that something is wrong. Sometimes it's a sign that we are growing. If we never experience discomfort, it's often because we are staying small, avoiding risks, and choosing the illusion of safety over the reality of possibility. Courage means being willing to feel awkward, exposed, and uncertain. It means recognizing that the discomfort we feel when we step into our power is not a sign to retreat. It's a sign that we are on the right path. The fear of being judged often keeps us stuck in places we've outgrown. We worry about what people will think if we change, if we fail, if we step outside of the roles they've assigned to us. So we stay in jobs that drain us, in relationships that no longer serve us, in versions of ourselves that no longer fit. We tell ourselves it's easier this way, that we are keeping the peace, that we are avoiding unnecessary conflict. But at what cost? Every time we prioritize comfort over courage, we betray a little piece of ourselves. We trade authenticity for approval. We silence our own voices in favor of what is expected, and eventually, that choice takes a toll, not just on our happiness, but on our sense of self. The reality is, no matter what we do, people will have opinions. Some will cheer for us, some will criticize, and some will leave. But the people meant for us, the ones who truly see us, will stay. And the only way to find them is by showing up as our real selves. So how do we build the muscle of courage? We start small. We practice speaking up in conversations where we'd normally stay silent. We take the first step toward the dream we keep putting off. We allow ourselves to feel discomfort without running from it. We remind ourselves that bravery is not the absence of fear, it's feeling the fear and moving forward anyway. Over time, discomfort becomes less of a barrier and more of a familiar companion. We stop seeing it as a reason to turn back and start recognizing it as proof that we are stepping into something bigger than we've ever known. And in the end, that is what it means to be true to yourself. Not to live a life free of fear, but to live a life where fear doesn't make your choices for you. At the end of the day, being true to yourself is not about being liked by everyone. It's not about fitting into neat little boxes or making sure you never rock the boat. It's about living in alignment with who you truly are, your values, your passions, your boundaries, and your truth. It's about giving yourself permission to be fully seen, even when it feels vulnerable. It's about choosing authenticity over approval, even when it's uncomfortable. This path is not always easy. There will be moments when it feels tempting to shrink yourself, to mold yourself into what the world expects, to silence your voice for the sake of making things easier. But every time you choose to stand in your truth, you build something stronger than approval. You build self-respect. And when you live from a place of self-respect, the right people, the right opportunities, and the right kind of belonging will find you. So let me ask you, what would your life look like if you stopped chasing perfection? If you stopped seeking validation from people who don't truly see you? If you let go of the fear of judgment and started showing up exactly as you are? Imagine the freedom in that. Imagine the peace. Imagine the joy of knowing that you are living fully, deeply, and unapologetically as yourself. That is the kind of life that is worth fighting for. And the best part, you don't have to wait. You don't have to earn it. You don't need permission from anyone. You can start today, right now, because the only thing standing between you and the truest version of yourself is the decision to embrace it.